1872, Atlantic Ocean. The sea stretched endlessly in every direction, an iron-gray expanse beneath a heavy winter sky. Waves heaved against the wind, white foam cresting like the froth at the mouth of some monstrous animal. The brigantine Dei Grazia, a Canadian vessel sturdy and disciplined, pressed onward through the swells, her crew weary but alert, eyes always searching the horizon for sails. The ocean, after all, never forgives the inattentive. On December 5th, near the Azores, the watchman's cry pierced the roar of the wind. "Ship ahead!" The men gathered at the rail. In the distance, a silhouette drifted, sluggish and uncertain, her sails slack, her path crooked. She was not anchored, not steered, only wandering, as if abandoned to the whims of the sea. Captain David Morehouse stepped forward, glass to his eye. His jaw tightened. Painted across the hull, just discernible between sprays of foam, was a name that would soon chill the marrow of sailors across the world. Mary Celeste. A pause. Silence, except for the slap of waves against wood. No signal flags. No crew on deck. The ship moved, but with no will of her own. Something about her presence was wrong. After a tense moment, Morehouse gave the order. 2 men lowered a boat, pulling hard against the current until they reached the drifting brigantine. They climbed her weathered rails and set foot upon her deck. What they found there would never leave their minds. The silence struck first. It was not the silence of a sleeping crew or the lull of calm seas. It was a hollow, unnatural void. The deck was damp, streaked with salt, but bore no signs of struggle. The wheel creaked faintly, moving in time with the swells. Ropes lay slack, sails ragged but serviceable. They called out. No answer. Below deck, the galley still held food, half prepared, as if abandoned in haste. The cabins contained belongings in perfect order. Boots neatly arranged, clothes folded, pipes resting on tables, even a child's small doll upon a bunk. The ship's logbook rested in the captain's cabin. Its last entry bore the date November 25th, barely 10 days earlier, reporting nothing unusual. Coordinates, weather notes, routine sailing matters. Nothing to foretell disaster. But the lifeboat was gone. The search yielded no blood, no bodies, no signs of violence. 10 souls had vanished. Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife Sarah, their 2-year-old daughter Sophia, and 7 sailors. All had disappeared as though plucked from existence, leaving their ship adrift and their lives erased. The Mary Celeste was no longer a vessel. She was a ghost. When the crew of the Dei Grazia towed her to Gibraltar, the world devoured the tale. Newspapers seized it. Phantom ship found abandoned. Captain, wife, and child missing. The maritime courts launched an inquiry, suspicious of foul play. Had Morehouse and his men murdered the crew to claim salvage rights? But the evidence cleared them. The Mary Celeste was seaworthy, her cargo untouched save for 9 empty barrels of alcohol. The officials could not explain it. Theories bloomed. Some whispered mutiny. But the crew's wages were untouched, their possessions left behind. No sailor steals away into the sea without his boots, his pipe, or his pay. Others spoke of pirates. Yet what pirate spares the gold, the food, the ship itself? Darker rumors took root, madness. Perhaps Captain Briggs, a man of strict discipline and religious fervor, had descended into insanity. Perhaps he slaughtered his family and crew before leaping into the waves. But the decks bore no blood, no mark of violence. The most rational explanation, if rationality could be said to apply at all, concerned the cargo. The barrels held industrial alcohol. 9 were empty, though their seals remained. Some claimed vapors had leaked, filling the ship with choking fumes. Fearing an explosion, Briggs might have ordered everyone into the lifeboat until the air cleared. If so, why had they not returned? The seas were calm that day, and the lifeboat was never seen again. But sailors are not men of pure reason. They live too close to the sea, too close to forces vast and merciless. And so, in the taverns of Gibraltar, whispers grew darker. They spoke of ghost ships that glide without crew, their lanterns burning with cold fire, of spirits that lure sailors to their doom. Some swore the Mary Celeste had crossed into cursed waters, claimed by powers older than mankind. Others whispered that strange lights had been sighted near the Azores that winter, glowing orbs that hovered above the waves. Had the crew been taken by something not human? And so the Mary Celeste entered legend. Yet the ship's story did not end in 1872. She sailed again, passed from owner to owner, each voyage carrying misfortune. Captains died sudden deaths, crews mutinied, cargoes were lost. By the 1880s, whispers of a curse clung to her timbers like mold. Sailors avoided her, fearing the shadow of her history. In 1885, under the command of Captain Gilman Parker, she met her end. Struggling with debt, Parker deliberately ran her aground near Haiti, hoping to claim insurance. But fate does not forgive desecration. Parker himself died within months, ruined and disgraced. Others who profited from her wreck soon followed, one struck down by illness, another by freak accident. It seemed the Mary Celeste demanded a toll for her betrayal. Her wreck disappeared beneath the waves, scattered bones devoured by the sea. But her story lived on, whispering through the years. The true terror of the Mary Celeste is not violence, but silence. Imagine a mother's laugh, a child's cry, the footfalls of men on deck, all gone, leaving only damp wood and empty cabins. The sea gives no answer. Some say the crew perished in storms, their lifeboats swallowed. Some say they were stolen by waterspouts, by rogue waves, by seaquakes. But none of these satisfy. Too many questions remain, too neat, too sudden. And so the legend endures. Even now some claim to see her. On moonless nights near the Azores, sailors whisper of a ship adrift, lanterns glowing faintly, sails flapping though no wind blows. Those who approach report a stillness aboard her, a half-eaten meal, a logbook unfinished, a child's doll abandoned on a bunk. Step aboard, they say, and you will not return. For the Mary Celeste does not give up her crew. And if you hear her timbers creak across black waters, if you glimpse her silhouette against the moon, know this, she is not drifting aimlessly. She is searching for you. The sea keeps its secrets well. And yet, men cannot resist filling that silence with voices, with tales, with explanations that circle like gulls above a carcass. After the Mary Celeste was found, theories multiplied like shadows at dusk. Each one tried to answer the unanswerable, and yet with every attempt the mystery only deepened, its edges darker, sharper. The theories of terror. Some men, pragmatic and skeptical, clung to the notion of natural disaster. They imagined a waterspout descending from the heavens, its roaring funnel shredding sails and blasting terror into the hearts of those aboard. Perhaps Captain Briggs, fearing his vessel would capsize, ordered everyone into the lifeboat, hoping to ride out the chaos. But a waterspout leaves scars, splintered wood, shredded rigging, chaos etched into the vessel. The Mary Celeste bore no such wounds. Others whispered of rogue waves, those towering mountains of water that rise unbidden from calm seas. A single wave might have swept across the deck, tearing men from their posts, wrenching a mother's grasp from her child. But then, why the missing lifeboat? Why the logbook closed neatly, the galley orderly, the cabins untouched? No, whatever had occurred was no instant annihilation. It was something stranger, slower, more deliberate. Then came the theory of alcohol fumes. The barrels of denatured alcohol in her hold were volatile, prone to leaking gases that could have filled the air below deck with an invisible, suffocating presence. A spark, a lantern's careless flame, and the entire ship might have erupted in fire. Perhaps Briggs, cautious and wise, feared explosion. He could have ordered an evacuation into the lifeboat until the danger passed. Yet the barrels, though some were found empty, bore their seals intact, an impossibility if their vapors had escaped with force enough to terrorize an entire crew. And even if they had fled, why did they never return? The seas that day were calm, the sky clear, the wind gentle. They should have seen their ship drifting close, beckoning them back. But they vanished, swallowed whole. And then, of course, there were the darker theories. Mutiny. The sailors, weary of Briggs' stern hand, could have risen against him, slaughtered him, his wife, his child, and then turned on one another until fear and regret left them adrift, their sins gnawing them alive. Yet the crew's wages lay untouched, the weapons undrawn, the decks unstained. No mutiny leaves such a clean silence. Piracy. Yet pirates take gold, jewels, supplies, flesh. The Mary Celeste held all these things, and yet none were stolen. Madness. They said perhaps Captain Briggs, driven to delirium by isolation and sea, went mad. Perhaps he cast his crew into the waves, or led them willingly into the lifeboat, only to row them into oblivion. But those who knew him swore Briggs was no such man. He was steady, devout, a sailor who had crossed the Atlantic more than a dozen times without fear or folly. So if not mutiny, not storm, not fire, not madness, then what? The voices of the sea. Sailors began to tell their own stories. One man in Gibraltar claimed he'd seen lights hovering over the ocean on the very night the crew vanished, bluish, flickering orbs that danced above the water like lanterns carried by unseen hands. Another swore he'd dreamt of a ship adrift, her deck littered with shadows that whispered his name, and when the newspapers printed the story of the Mary Celeste, he nearly collapsed, for it was the very vessel from his nightmare. By the time months had passed, the tale was already legend. They called her a cursed ship, a phantom, an omen, and perhaps they were not wrong. For after Gibraltar, the Mary Celeste continued her voyages, and misfortune followed her like a shadow. One captain fell ill within days of taking command, his fever burning him to ash within a week. Another voyage ended in mutiny, the sailors demanding to be released from the devil's ship. Cargoes went missing, storms battered her, owners sold her at a loss again and again. No one who touched her seemed to escape unharmed. By the early 1880s, the brigantine's reputation had sunk deeper than her hull. Few crews would sail her. Few captains would claim her. She became like a leper of the seas, avoided, cursed, feared. The curse fulfilled. In 1885, Captain Gilman Parker took her for what would be her final voyage. Burdened by debt and desperation, he schemed to wreck her deliberately near the reefs of Haiti, hoping to collect on her insurance. But fate had grown weary of men profiting from the ghost ship's bones. Parker survived the wreck, but not for long. Within months he was dead, some said from illness, others from madness, his mind corroded by nightmares. His co-conspirators fared no better. One lost his fortune overnight, another drowned in shallow waters near shore, his lungs filled though no waves had broken over him. It seemed the Mary Celeste had taken her revenge. Her timbers scattered, her hull consumed by waves, she was gone. But her story was not. The curse lingered, not in wood or sail, but in memory, in whispers, in the heavy silence of the sea at night. The phantom sightings. Long after her bones rotted beneath the ocean, sailors still claimed to see her. In the North Atlantic, in the waters near the Azores, and even off the coasts of Africa, the Mary Celeste was said to appear. Sometimes men described a ship adrift, sails tattered but still full, lanterns glowing though no crew stood watch. They hailed her, received no answer, and when they approached, she slipped into mist, vanishing as though she had never been. Others swore they had boarded her. One tale, told in hushed tones in the taverns of Boston, spoke of a whaler who stumbled upon her in the fog. His men boarded, finding the decks as silent as death. The galley still held food, steaming as if freshly cooked, though no hands had touched it. The logbook contained entries written not in ink, but in a substance like seawater mixed with blood. Terrified, they fled, and when they looked back, the ship was gone, swallowed by fog. Of course, skeptics scoffed. Tales grow in the telling, and sailors are liars by trade. But in every story there was something consistent. the silence. No screams, no struggle, no violence. Only silence. And that silence was more terrible than any scream could ever be. The horror of absence. What makes the Mary Celeste endure in the mind is not blood, not gore, not proof of violence. It is absence. The thought that one moment you are alive, your daughter's doll tucked into her blanket, your wife humming as she prepares a meal, your crew hauling ropes and singing low shanties, and the next it is all gone. Not destroyed, not shattered, but erased, leaving only echoes of what should have been. The ship is not a story of murder. It is a story of nothingness. And nothingness is far more frightening than blood. Some say the sea took them. Others say the sky. Still others, things older than both. But listen closely. On nights when the wind falls still and the waves move with unnatural rhythm, sailors swear they hear footsteps pacing the deck of an empty ship. Lanterns glow where no hands tend them. A child's laugh drifts across the water, thin and distant, as if carried by the tide. The Mary Celeste is gone, but she is not at rest. The sea does not forget. Ships rot, men drown, names fade from ledgers, but the ocean itself, it remembers. Long after the Mary Celeste sank beneath Haitian waters, strange documents began to surface. A bundle of letters, supposedly discovered in the drawer of an abandoned seaman's chest. A fragment of a logbook, pages warped with salt. Even a diary, written in a hand unsteady with fear. Whether these were real, forged, or born from the fevered imaginations of storytellers, no one can say. But they spread across ports and taverns like wildfire, whispered over rum and lit by the smoky glow of lanterns. The captain's last letter. The first was said to be a letter penned by Captain Benjamin Briggs himself, though no historian has ever confirmed its authenticity. It was dated the day before the ship was found adrift. The men grow restless. The sea is calm, yet they speak of sounds, footfalls upon the deck when no man walks, voices calling from the hold though none are below. I have prayed with Sarah, yet even she confesses to unease. Mary cries at night, pointing at corners where nothing stands. I am not a man to give credence to superstition, but I confess, there are moments I feel this ship is not ours alone. The letter ends abruptly mid-sentence, as though the ink froze in his pen. The sailor's diary. Another account surfaced decades later, attributed to a sailor named Elias Dorman, who claimed to have crewed aboard the brigantine before her infamous voyage. His diary, if genuine, is a tapestry of unease. November 12th. The sea was calm but the air foul. Not with rot, nor with smoke, but with something I cannot name. A heaviness. I dreamt last night of water pouring down stairwells, though I know not from where. November 14th. Heard Mary singing, though she was below deck with her mother, far astern. The sound came from the prow, and yet it was her voice. Briggs is stern, but I see fear in him too. He does not admit it. No captain would. November 15th. The barrels of spirits are secure, but the men whisper they can hear sloshing even when all is still. I myself thought I heard knocking, like fists upon wood, from within the cargo. When I checked, there was nothing, only silence. November 16th. The cook swears he saw a face in the water, pale, with eyes that glowed like lanterns. He will not go near the railing again. I cannot sleep. The ship groans like a beast in pain, though the timbers are sound. The diary ends there. No further entries were ever found. The Gibraltar Statement. More official is the testimony given by the salvagers who brought the Mary Celeste to Gibraltar. It was entered into record, though never read aloud in court. The reason, they said, was that the words were too disturbing, too strange to be believed. We boarded her on the 5th day of December. The decks were dry, the sails torn but serviceable. When I stepped into the captain's cabin, I felt a chill as if I had plunged into water. The bed was neatly made, but upon the pillow lay a small indentation, as though someone had just risen moments before. The logbook lay open, though the ink upon its last page was smeared, as if by a wet hand. In the galley, I found bread still soft, though no fire had burned for hours. And then, God forgive me, I heard it, a whisper, my name, spoken low and close, though no man stood behind me. I left the cabin and swore never to enter again. When we brought her into port, I could not shake the feeling that something unseen walked beside us, unseen but heavy. The phantom crew. As years passed, more sailors swore they had seen the Mary Celeste. But these later tales grew darker. One story tells of a merchant ship off the coast of Africa. The lookout spotted a brigantine drifting aimlessly in the fog. They hailed her, received no answer, and after hours of indecision, the captain sent a boat. As the men climbed aboard, they swore they saw figures moving just out of sight, shadows vanishing around corners, a flash of a hand upon a rail, a dress fluttering through a doorway. When they entered the captain's cabin, they found the table set for three, 2 adults, 1 child. Plates clean, silver polished, cups brimming with clear water. But when the men reached for the cups, the liquid had turned black, thick as tar. They fled in terror, rowing until their arms bled. When they turned back, the Mary Celeste was gone. The silence at sea. What haunts more than the stories themselves is the silence that binds them. Every testimony speaks of absence, chairs waiting to be filled, beds still warm, meals half prepared, laughter heard but not seen. Never gore, never violence, never proof of struggle. Only erasure. To vanish so utterly, to be swallowed without trace, that is a fate worse than death. Even the most hardened sailor will confess, when the rum is deep and the lanterns burn low, that he fears not the storm nor the wave, but the silence. For in silence one can imagine anything, and in that imagining one finds terror. The legend takes root. By the turn of the 20th century, the Mary Celeste was no longer just a ship, it was an omen. To dream of her was to invite misfortune. To speak of her while at sea was to court disaster. Men carved crosses into the masts of their vessels to ward her away. Women burned sprigs of rosemary by the docks to keep her curse from following their husbands. And yet sightings persisted. Some swore the ship sailed still, crewed not by flesh and blood, but by shadows. A phantom vessel, forever searching, forever incomplete. The lost souls of the Mary Celeste wandering through eternity, caught between sea and sky. A closing whisper. There are those who believe that if you find yourself upon the Atlantic on a moonless night, when the water is glass and the wind breathes no song, you might see her. A shape in the fog, sails billowing though no air stirs, lanterns glowing though no hands tend them. And if you listen, if you dare to listen, you may hear the faintest sound, the cry of a child, the prayer of a mother, the steady voice of a captain calling out to a crew that no longer exists. But beware, for if you hear them too clearly, the sea may decide it has room for one more ghost. The story of the Mary Celeste did not end with her salvage, nor with her ignoble scuttling in Haitian waters. Instead, it lived on, mutating, expanding, drawing strength from the silence that lay at its heart. What had once been a maritime curiosity grew into a legend, a shadow that spread from dockside whispers to scholarly treatises, from newspapers to tavern tales, until the ship herself seemed less a vessel than an open wound on the surface of history. The Court of Shadows. In Gibraltar, when the salvors first presented their claims, the judges were faced with an enigma. The official records preserved their bafflement. No sign of piracy, no damage from storm, no bodies, no blood. The cargo, save for a few barrels, intact. And yet, every man, woman, and child vanished. Unresolved, the tribunal issued its judgment, but among the papers lay a curious note, never meant for the public. One of the clerks wrote, "I have read the depositions. I have seen the ship myself. I tell you plainly, there was something wrong in her air. A weight, a presence. No court can pass sentence upon such a thing. Better to let her rot in obscurity, for I fear that should men seek to profit from her, They invite a curse that will not be easily borne. The words were struck from the record, but they were copied, passed hand to hand, until they became part of the growing mythology. The scholars and the skeptics. By the late 19th century, the Mary Celeste had entered the annals of maritime history. Learned men wrote essays, attempting to tame the legend with reason. Theories multiplied. Alcohol vapors igniting, forcing evacuation. Waterspouts or sudden squalls. Piracy, mutiny, or secret insurance fraud. Even abduction by powers beyond the earth. Each explanation sought to replace mystery with method, yet none accounted for the details: the warm food, the orderly cabin, the log interrupted mid-sentence. Most damning of all, none explained why an experienced captain would abandon a seaworthy vessel with no sign of imminent danger. And so, despite pages of ink and decades of speculation, the unanswered questions persisted, deepening the unease. Scholars provided reasons. Sailors provided warnings. The gap between them became an abyss. The curse of later voyages. The Mary Celeste herself did not rest easy. Sold and resold, she sailed under different captains, but her reputation dogged her. Crews mutinied, fearing her cursed name. Captains reported strange mishaps, sails tearing without wind, compasses spinning wild, shadows crossing decks at night. One account survives from 1885, just before her final voyage. A mate, writing to his brother, confessed, "This ship has a soul, but not a human one. She groans at night, not with the creak of timber, but with the sound of something alive. I have seen footprints appear upon the deck where no man walked. When I lay my head to rest, I dream of water rushing in, though she floats steady. The men whisper of the lost family, that their spirits wander still. I begin to believe it. When her owner deliberately wrecked her off Haiti in a failed scheme of fraud, it seemed the ocean itself rose in judgment. The ship struck reef, breaking apart, refusing to yield her ghost to the flames. She was left there to die, but sailors swore her hulk lingered for months, visible from miles away, a carcass that would not sink, a warning to all who dared to look upon her. The eternal drift. Even in death, the legend did not fade. Stories spread of ships encountering her silhouette upon foggy waters, years after her destruction. Fishermen claimed to glimpse her sails, ragged but proud, vanishing with the dawn. A whaler reported nearly colliding with a brigantine whose lanterns burned pale and blue, only to find no vessel upon the horizon come morning. The Atlantic is vast, and memory unreliable. But what gives these tales their power is not their veracity, it is their persistence. For every decade since 1872, someone has sworn the Mary Celeste sails still. The nature of the fear. What is it that terrifies us so about her story? It is not death. Death is common at sea. Nor is it violence. Blood and storms and wrecks litter maritime history. No, the horror of the Mary Celeste lies in absence. A life snuffed out leaves a body. A struggle leaves broken wood, torn sails, stains upon the deck. But the Mary Celeste offers nothing. Only silence. Only erasure. The mind abhors such emptiness. In that void, it pours its own darkness, phantoms, curses, whispers of the drowned. And thus the ship became not a mystery to be solved, but a mirror to human fear itself. A closing chronicle. Today, nearly 2 centuries later, the name still carries weight. Mention her in a coastal tavern, and you will see old sailors cross themselves. Scholars debate, writers invent, filmmakers recreate, but none dispel. The sea, after all, is the last wilderness. We chart its coasts, measure its currents, sail its breadth, but its depths remain unfathomed, its moods unfathomable. If ever there was a fitting tomb for a mystery, it is there. And so the Mary Celeste drifts forever in imagination, her decks empty, her sails reaching for winds that do not blow, her logbook waiting for words that will never be written. Somewhere, perhaps, the voices of her crew still call out across the waves, not with anger, but with longing. For what is a sailor without a ship, a mother without her child, a captain without his crew? The ocean does not forget, and neither, it seems, do we. Final words. If you find yourself upon the Atlantic on a night when the stars hide and the waters shine black as glass, listen well. Should you hear the creak of timbers, the rush of unseen footsteps, the laughter of a child carried on the wind, do not look too long upon the mist. For some ships are not meant to be found, and some stories are not meant to end.